The world's most popular board game. Yeah, I have limited amounts of time right now because I'm going on a business trip for the next 2 weeks. I think this is perhaps the last game that I do for a while. Oddly enough, nobody seems to want me to do this. I picked this game up used. It has all the property, presumably the money, some extra pieces. I got 10 pieces here instead of the 8 that you expect. One of which is God knows what. Oh, dude. But I don't know what the hell this is supposed to be. This blob of crap. I got the thimble, which I thought was nuked before this came out. It also comes with some sort of speed die. I have no idea what that's supposed to do. I don't have the rules for it, but I know the rules to Monopoly mostly. A couple of funky things. I'll go over them briefly. I'm also missing a couple of hotels and 12 houses. Yeah, I know how many of each of them I'm supposed to have. Perhaps I'm missing some chance or community chest cards, but as long as I don't know about it, it doesn't really matter. This is a game I picked up at Goodwill, and I looked through the property because one of them that I kind of wanted, it was the Arizona Parks one, but it was a full-size box. It's kind of a bonus to have this small box because I could carry it home easily. So what's up with Monopoly? All right, you start with like $1,500 each. Everybody rolls the dice. High roller goes first. You roll the dice, and you move that many spaces around the board. If you get doubles, you get to roll again. You get to do that 3 times in a row. Wow. If you get doubles twice in a row, you get to roll 3 times in a row. If you get doubles twice in a row, you're fine. If you roll doubles a third time, you go immediately to jail. Which could be a good or bad thing. When you land on a property, if you own that property already, nothing happens. If you do not own it, if no one owns it, you have the option to immediately buy it for the price listed. If you choose not to do that, it goes up for auction. And everyone, including the person who refused it, can enter bidding into it. Bidding starts at $1. If someone else owns it, you owe them the rent, which is listed here. If they happen to own an entire color group, for example, Med and Baltic, they owe double the rent when they land on there. Now, here's where things get kind of tricky, where my knowledge of the rules doesn't really come into absolute strength. If you land on a property and there's a mortgaged property of that same color in somebody's hands, they own both of them, but one of them is mortgaged and the other is not, and you land on the unmortgaged one, I think you still pay double the rent. I'm not positive about that. But that's what I'm going to be playing. What else? There's certain special properties, like the railroads, which work a little differently. Just have them in the back here. It's based on the number of railroads that you own. That's the amount of money. And yes, I know, you all know the rules. Looks like my community chest is way short. If you land on the electric company or waterworks, you're going to be basing that on the die roll you made, the amount that you owe. In which case, it's 4 times the amount that you rolled on your move, whether you got there by a move or a card or whatever. And if your opponent owns both of them and you land on it, you owe 10 times the amount owed. There's special spaces. Chance and community chests just say draw a card, and it takes the effect it says. And yeah, there could be some issues, if like Illinois is missing from here, the Go to Illinois card or whatever. Unfortunately, this is the only set I have available. You have other ones that just say, hey, do something bad, or do nothing at all, or go to jail. The income tax, usually later in the game you just pay the $200, but early in the game you only have $1,500. So on the first go around or two, well, you want to pay the 10%. Or if you're hammered. However, once you own property, you really probably do not want to try to figure that 10%, just because all your property value is included in there. So what's key about the game? Well, once you own a color set of properties, for example, Baltic or Mediterranean or these or whatever, you're allowed, if they're all unmortgaged, to build property. And you can do this in between essentially any roll of the dice. Basically, somebody moves, even if they get doubles, you can chime in on their turn and throw down some houses in their way. This is kind of important because it means that you can make your decision, you can put off your decision of when to buy to when it's most advantageous to you to do so. It can actually interfere with play a little bit to do that. When you buy, you have to buy your houses semi-evenly, which is to say you can't buy 2 houses on one property if you don't have any on the others. You can't buy a hotel on a property until all the properties have 4 houses, and you buy all the houses and hotels sequentially, although sometimes you can do it kind of notionally. The cost for the houses is based on what street they're on, as it were, what side of the board. Houses are $50 here, 100, 150 to 200 bucks a piece, and then the hotel counts as an additional house. One of the things you'll notice with the prices on properties, the rent goes up as the properties become developed. Now, the big jump is usually at 3 houses. 3 houses is where they start really hitting you. But is it really a big jump? So here I'm going from 28 to 70. That's doubled. A little more than doubled. A little more than doubled. But then at 4 and 5 houses, it stops producing that same bonus. So when available, if you have more than one color group, you want to have your 3 houses on each or less rather than 5, the full hotel. What it also means, though, is 3 houses is sort of the biggest return you can get and the biggest percentage return you can get for the amount that you're investing, and the biggest hit that you can do while still getting that good return on your investment. Anything else I should say? Trading. Trading is the most important part of the game. And there's only a couple of trades that'll happen in any given game of Monopoly. Now, with 10 people on the board, and yes, I'm doing that. With 10 people on the board, the number of trades might be quite high. Also, some people might end up without getting color sets, getting knocked out of the game early, whatever. Hey, that's cool. But those key trades to assemble your property groups are what determine who wins the game. To some extent, that decision is just really a matter of probabilities of where the properties lie, the price to earning ratios on them. Overall, my opinion, after significant analysis, is the oranges are far and away the best. Although there are some other decent ones. The reds are not terribly bad because there's an Illinois card. The purples aren't too bad even though they're on the poor side of the block. Generally you want to be on the rich side of the block, but the yellows start getting iffy. Everything on the other side of go to jail, you start getting less and less opportunity to hit that part of the board. Chances are someone will run around and go, or be flushed maybe to boardwalk, or take a ride on the reading or whatever, and they'll end up jumping past that section of the board. So that 4th line, even though you're paying the most on houses, tends to be very inefficient. I know some people love the greens, but if you start doing statistical analysis on the probability of landing on each space on any given die roll, you get to this side of the board and things are getting troublesome, which is a big part of why the oranges are so good. They also have a very good price to earning ratio. They have cards that come to help them, like the back 3 from chance. There's nothing, there is a specific that gets you, I think, to St. James. Anyway, there you have it. Another big bonus to this, jail is a popular place to be. And when you get out of jail, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 puts you right in the midst of the oranges. So there's a good chance that a lot of people will be coming out of jail and hitting your oranges there. Just, it works out to be the premium property. However, everybody more or less knows this, unless you've got some poor loser who thinks greens are a really good deal, in which case you take them to the cleaner by trading them the greens and the oranges 1-for-1, or maybe even get them to give you some extra money, because, hey, you paid more for these greens than you did for the oranges. But assuming that everybody kind of has the same mindset as to the valuation of the properties, the deals end up tending to be fairly balanced. And what that means then is that it's more a key of making the deal, finding the right deals and making them, than necessarily bilking your opponent on a deal. Although sometimes people have wrongful thoughts, and I'm sure the guy with green who thinks the greens are good is thinking, I'll take that deal. That's great. But anyway, what is so special about the big deal? Because you're only making 1 or 2 deals. Well, you've got this long involved game with a lot of luck in it in terms of rolling, moving around the board and everything. But then you've got this singular deal, or maybe a pair or 3 deals throughout the course of the game that define whether or not you're going to win. And that makes those deals, it imbues them with more significance than a game that's just filled with lots of deals and auction, and trades and stuff like that in it. So like if you look at Civilization, where you're constantly trading, yeah, there might be 1 or 2 that are really key, like the time that you walk out with all the grain. But in general, those deals seem to mean less. It's not a matter of closing that single important deal. And in fact, the simple fact that somebody is ahead means that in Settlers or in Civilization, they're going to have a harder time making deals. Somebody else might demand a little bit more from them. Well, in this, it's not necessarily clear who's ahead until after the deals have been made and some more luck rolls out. All right. Any other rules that I missed? I forgot how the game ends. The game ends when you wipe everyone out. And you wipe everyone out by bankrupting them. You can't bankrupt people without building up big properties. 2-player game sucks because probably there's like a 60% chance that you end up with nobody getting any property sets. The times when somebody does get a property set, a lot of those, one person only gets it. And then therefore they have the advantage. So there's very few games of 2-player Monopoly that will end up with a split of property that allows the game to actually play out. And if it does, it's just a luck fest. There's very little actual strategy in terms of how you invest your money here. Some people say, oh no, there's a lot to that. No, there isn't. You buy what you can. You buy where it's obvious that you can make some money off the roll if it works. You may have some risk aversion where you want to keep a little bit of cash on hand to handle a loss. Generally, though, that's probably a questionable idea. You usually want to buy every property you can, simply because they're valuable trade commodities. The exception being the utilities. Those may not serve much purpose. Some people like them, but I'm giving my opinion here. But even if you are buying a set that you can't possibly complete the deal in, you may be preventing someone else from completing the deal on it. And at the worst, it's only costing you half what it does because you just mortgage it for half value. And I forgot to talk too much about mortgaging. You can mortgage at any time pretty much to pay bills, to build houses, whatever. Unless you have improved property. If you have houses or hotels on it, you have to strip them off. And those can be sold off at half value, again at any time in order to meet obligations. Which could include building other houses. When you mortgage a property, you flip it over and you get this amount of money. Now I'm trying to remember what the unmortgaging fee is. For unmortgaging it, you pay this amount. I think it's 10% more. I'm trying to remember if it's 10 or 20. Unfortunately, it doesn't say here. as I said, I don't have the rules. All right, well, I think I'm going with the 10% because that's what I seem to remember. Important not to play with some house rules, like, let's ignore auctions. No, auctions can be interesting at times. Oh, you can make deals at in between terms. And they can involve just about anything. I mean, money, cards. Conceivably, they can involve future promises, I suppose. But there are some disincentives in the rules that indicate that maybe that's not actually allowed. So, for example, if you say, I'll trade you this for that and I won't pay rent the next 3 times. Well, that may not be legitimate, but here's the thing. You don't have to pay rent unless somebody else unless the owner asks you for the rent. So, part of it is paying attention. You have to pay attention during other people's turns, or else you don't have to pay or else you may not get your rent. Which is always kind of a funny thing to do to somebody. Ha ha! I owed you $550, and you missed it because the next person took his turn. Some people see that as very dicky, but for me, it's like stealing the deal in euchre. It's part of the amusement to the game, although it's not really any part of the strategy of the game particularly. It's really more just a way of psychologically disturbing people and having a good time at the same time. All right, well, I'm going to give this a shot with all these pieces. It's a hard game to play solo with like 8 players, and I'm stretching it to 10. I'm going to make little cards to indicate who is which of these. I don't know who the little spaceman is or whatever. I don't know. This cannot be a real piece. It's like a Dalek or something. I don't know. But, hey, I had the opportunity to play with 10 people. All right, up it goes.